I'm Christopher, a 39-year-old dedicated homemaker and the proud mother of a lively 5-year-old daughter. My husband, Daniel, is my constant partner in this beautiful journey of family life. Though our household is filled with energy, there's an underlying sense of distance from my own siblings. I have an older brother and a younger one, but over the years, our connection has become increasingly faint. As a child, the divide was obvious. My brothers, inseparable in their adventures, left me behind simply because I was a girl. Even now, they share a bond that seems unaffected by time. Despite their age difference, they remain close, even living together as adults. Since my marriage a decade ago, the gap between us has only widened, leaving me to wonder about their lives from afar. Loneliness, a familiar companion, led me to limit the size of my own family to just 2 children, a decision shaped by the sting of exclusion in my youth. But life had other plans. Against all odds, my daughter's arrival filled the void, bringing joy and warmth into our lives. Now, my world revolves around Daniel and our daughter, leaving little room for thoughts of my brothers. Even the news of my older brother's engagement barely stirred my emotions. Yet as the day of his introduction to Julia neared, the excitement in the family home was palpable. My parents, concerned about his prolonged singlehood, busied themselves with preparations, while my younger brother lamented his own single status. When Steve arrived with Julia by his side, the air was charged with celebration. Erasing any lingering distance, I observed from the sidelines, as if witnessing an event from another world, disconnected from my reality. Best wishes to you both, Steve and Julia, I said, my voice lacking any true warmth as I mechanically prepared coffee. Julia soon made her way into the kitchen, offering her help. I declined politely, encouraging her to enjoy the gathering as our guest. However, her expression betrayed a hidden agenda. A sly smile tugged at the corners of her mouth as she commented on the passage of time. Time really is cruel, isn't it? You, who were once so small, are now the lady of the house, she teased, leaving me speechless. I could only nod, masking my discomfort, and retreated back to the living room, where Julia left me to mull over her cryptic remark. Despite the unease she stirred, I resolved not to let her affect me. Still, the tension hung in the air, casting a shadow over the future of my relationship with my brother and his new wife. A month later, my mother invited us to a family reunion, and Daniel, our daughter, and I made our way home. As we entered my childhood house, we were greeted with the familiar warmth of family, a welcome relief. While I refilled coffee cups in the kitchen, Julia appeared by my side again. Her presence sent a shiver down my spine, but I kept my composure. Christopher, she began, her words laced with unspoken meaning, I don't want you at our family gatherings anymore. As a wife, you should be attending your husband's family events. Her words dripped with disdain. I felt a surge of anger, but kept my calm. Don't worry, I replied. I hardly belong in this house anyway. I was only called by my mother today. Then please don't come, even if my mother-in-law invites you, she snapped. I couldn't understand why Julia held such animosity toward me, but I no longer cared about the woman who thought she had the right to be my brother's wife. They say the opposite of love is indifference, and that's exactly how I felt, indifferent. Throughout my life, I'd been treated like an outsider by my brothers, leaving me emotionally drained. Meeting Daniel and starting our family brought a glimmer of happiness, but Julia seemed blind to my detached feelings. If you don't like me, then don't talk to me, I countered, locking eyes with Julia before she stormed off. Since my brother's marriage, my mother had been pushing for me to attend more family events to mend the rift. But after that confrontation with Julia, I made a firm decision to stay away. As long as she didn't make my brother unhappy, her treatment of me was irrelevant. My brother's late marriage was a joyous occasion, and I didn't want to ruin his happiness. We didn't see each other often, and I convinced myself that occasional meetings were bearable. I shared my decision with Daniel. Do you really want to become family with someone who treats you like this? He asked, his support unwavering. It's okay, I replied. I wasn't close to my brother, but I still want him to be happy. If I have to bear it, so be it. Daniel's words brought me comfort, but the bitterness remained. My thoughts were interrupted by a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Julia. Oh, Christopher, how have you been? She greeted, her voice falsely chipper. When I said I wanted to be friends, he immediately gave me your number. I was taken aback by her sudden intrusion. I tried to stay calm, concealing my discomfort. Is that so? I responded, trying to remain neutral. Do you keep in touch with Steve? She asked, her tone accusing. My anxiety spiked as I struggled to comprehend her line of questioning. No, I don't, I stammered. Are you lying? She shot back, irritation evident in her voice. Even when I talk badly about you, no one believes me. How annoying are you? Confused, I asked, did I do something to you, Julia? It's worse that you don't realize it, she replied coldly. Anyway, you're married, so stay out of it. Don't tell anyone I said this, or I'll send some people I know to your house. Her threat sent chills down my spine. I ended the call abruptly, my hands trembling. I was unsure whether to confront my brother or seek advice from my parents. As I pondered my options, Daniel appeared at my side, his concerned gaze locking with mine. You look pale as a ghost, he remarked, his worry palpable. I recounted the conversation to him, and his anger grew with every word. What the hell is that about? Just block the number, and let's tell your parents or brother immediately. He can't be happy marrying someone like that. Daniel's protective instincts flared. I hesitated, torn between taking action or staying distant. But maybe she's nice in front of my brother, I just need to stay out of it, I argued weakly. Do you think that's the end of it? She threatened you, didn't she? She's not a good person. If your brother knew what she did to you, I'm sure. Daniel's words trailed off, leaving me burning with anger. I understand, but why do I have to be the one to step in? I've been distanced from my brothers for so long. If my little family is intact, isn't that enough? Is that not okay? The calm facade I usually kept shattered as memories of being excluded by my brothers resurfaced. The pain of being invisible to them ignited a long-suppressed anger. But I knew Daniel wasn't the one I was mad at. I realized this and turned to him, apologizing. I'm sorry, you've done nothing wrong. Daniel wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close. You've been holding a lot in, haven't you? I'm here for you, Christopher. You can vent to me, but I think you need to talk to your brothers. His words were a balm to my soul, and I knew it was time to face the past. I decided to reach out to my brothers for a private conversation, but fate had other plans. Instead, I received a call from my mother. My brothers had been in a serious car accident while on a trip to Maryland. I rushed to the hospital, my heart racing. Julia had minor injuries, but my brothers were in critical condition. By the time I arrived, their surgery was over, and against the odds, they had survived. They were moved to the ICU, and I had only a brief moment to visit. Caught in the strange situation with Julia, I kept my distance, fully aware of the tension that lingered. My mother, however, voiced her concern for Julia, suggesting that it must be hard for her to return to an empty home. Julia, you don't have to worry about things at home. Why don't you stay with us for a bit? She offered, her concern clear. But Julia, her face full of discomfort, politely refused with a simple, no, thank you, I'll go back to my parents' house. In an attempt to be helpful, my mother offered to drive her, but Julia insisted she was fine and left quickly. Despite my doubts, a part of me couldn't help but feel sorry for her. At least she would be safe at her parents' place, far from the chaos of the hospital. Over the next few days, Julia never returned, while my parents and I visited often. At first, my brothers were bedridden, suffering in pain, but over time, their condition began to improve. Meanwhile, my brother's upcoming wedding to Julia hung in the balance. With no word from her and no progress on the plans, my mother had to step in and communicate with the venue, explaining the situation. I couldn't bring myself to talk to my brothers about their relationship with Julia or the troubling phone call she had made, so I continued my hospital visits. Despite their immobility, seeing their gentle smiles whenever I arrived brought me comfort. 2 months into their stay, I came to visit them alone and overheard a conversation between my mother and brothers. If anything were to happen to me, I've made sure that the insurance money will go to Christopher. If Catherine is happy, I'll be at peace, my older brother said sincerely. A wave of guilt washed over me as I listened, but then their conversation shifted to Julia. I truly feel for Julia, but maybe it's for the best we didn't invite her. She seems uncomfortable with her. If not, we would have invited everyone, my younger brother remarked, his voice echoing in the hallway. I was stunned by what I heard. They, who had always been inseparable, were now discussing me like an outsider. That kid, when she was younger, she used to copy me and got hurt. I'm a man, I've done dangerous things, but I can't let Christopher go through that again. And our sister, she's so serious all the time. It's hard to rely on someone who tries too hard, my brother said with genuine concern. Mom laughed incredulously. You really thought that much about Christopher? Unexpectedly, emotions surged within me. We had all begged Daniel to take care of Christopher. Oh, how I remember the shock on Daniel's face. It seems like he's really been looking out for her, just like he promised, someone commented amid the laughter, but I couldn't join in. Tears streamed down my face, making it hard to lift my head. How had I missed all the love around me? In that moment, I made up my mind. I turned around and headed to Julia's parents' house. When I rang the bell and introduced myself, Julia answered with a look of annoyance. Could you please visit my brother at the hospital? I heard you haven't gone once since the accident, I pleaded, bowing deeply. Julia's response was blunt. Do you think I'd marry a man in that condition? I told you a lot, but it doesn't matter now. I plan on ending the engagement once everything settles down. I'm glad we didn't marry. My heart sank at her words. Julia, didn't you get engaged to my brother because you loved him? She scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. I'm in insurance sales, and I only approached him because I knew he had a good policy. His salary looked good too, but that was a mistake. He made you the beneficiary of his insurance. Usually, the spouse is listed once you're engaged. After I convinced him, he promised to change it to my name once we married. I don't need a man like him with those injuries, Julia continued, her words cutting deep. Was it your plan to keep me away from home so my brother and I wouldn't cross paths? I asked, trying to understand her reasoning. Yes, if he cares that much about his sister, I thought it would be a burden, but I won't say any more. The accident killed any feelings I had for him, and the fact that I got hurt too is even worse. The accident is partly his fault, so he should compensate me for the emotional damage, Julia stated coldly. Fury bubbled inside me, but I took a deep breath to calm myself. If you consult a lawyer, you'll find that your demands are pointless, I responded. You don't know that, Julia retorted defiantly. I do, but more importantly, about my smartphone, I began, but Julia quickly interrupted. I don't care about your phone, she snapped. I see, it automatically records all calls, like the threats you've made. What if I took it to the police? I said, a hint of satisfaction in my voice. Julia's anger flared. What the hell are you doing? That's wiretapping. You're recording people without their permission. That's illegal, she shouted, her tone escalating. Just then, Julia's mother appeared, joining the confrontation. How dare you record her without permission? Give me your phone now, she demanded fiercely. As Julia shot me a look of disgust, I kept my composure, smiling calmly. I'm glad you want to end the engagement. I wouldn't want someone like her near my brother, I said evenly. I turned and left Julia's home, feeling as if I had just seen the truth unfold before me. I made my way to the hospital, where my brothers were recovering. Listen, I have something that might shock you, but I need you to hear it, I began, preparing them for what was to come. I played the recording of Julia's phone call, letting them hear her true intentions. Both my brothers were stunned, their eyes wide with disbelief. I also revealed that I had recorded our earlier conversation, ensuring they heard her manipulative words firsthand. My older brother's anger was palpable, and despite his injury, he tried to get out of bed in his fury. I quickly stopped him. Please, don't get upset. I didn't want you to hear this to make you angry. I just want you to let go of the idea of marrying Julia, I urged. Then my younger brother spoke up. I can't forgive her either, but sis, why did you go this far for us? I admitted that I had overheard their conversation with our mother earlier, apologizing for eavesdropping. To my surprise, they both shook their heads, expressing regret for their previous detachment. We didn't know how to connect with you after that childhood incident, but the truth is, we've always cared about you, my older brother confessed, easing the tension in the room. I smiled, feeling a sense of relief. Thank you, I'm an adult now. I don't just need protection, I can protect you too. In the days that followed, my brothers fully recovered and were discharged from the hospital. My older brother called off the engagement with Julia, refusing her demands for compensation. He hired a lawyer, but as expected, no compensation was ever given. Meanwhile, my brothers shared Julia's misdeeds with their friends, even playing the recordings of her threats. As a result, Julia found herself isolated and shunned by those around her. Since then, I've returned to my normal life, feeling at peace. My bond with my brothers has grown stronger, and we now spend more time together, making up for lost time. 2 years later, both of my brothers found their future spouses, and our relationships with their families have remained harmonious. Looking back on the journey we've taken, I'm filled with hope for the future and the good relationships ahead. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Stay stunned.